Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing fantastic out there. If you guys could subscribe to this channel, that would be great. If you could also subscribe to the Tobin and Leroy Show on all your podcast platforms, that would mean a lot to me too. We're live every single weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the WQAM YouTube page and Twitch page. So if you guys could check us on out over there, man, that would mean the world to me. So appreciate you guys stopping by. The Miami Dolphins and the rest of the NFL are meeting in Palm Beach right here in the 561. And Mike McDaniel meeting with the media today. Had a lot of topics that he went on. There's been a lot of stuff that I've wanted to chew on from that, adorable little long-winded weirdo. Man, he is quirky. But I actually thought one of the more interesting things that he touched on today was the interesting comments he made about Zach Wilson. Now, Zach Wilson, the Dolphins signed him as their backup quarterback. And they gave him a pretty hefty salary. They gave him $6 million off the bat with a chance to be 10 with all those incentives. We, of course, always need to address this position now because you never know how many games Tua can give you. And Mike McDaniel, he spoke a little bit about this today. So Mike McDaniel said, I don't want to speak too much for him, but the absolute fact is he's become the player who he is, which is consistently evolving, developing, improving, ascending as a player because he recognizes the world around him, and he had to see the ramifications about his lack of availability firsthand. His last injuries, the last 2 seasons, there's been a consistency and a variable that he can control, starting with jiu-jitsu, and then now how he extends play, prioritizing his health over a frustrated shoulder punch or whatever. He said that I have the confidence based on my observation of everything preceding that he's going to control those controllables because it was hard. He felt all of it. And the only way that you can do right by anything is you learn through whatever that is. But I will say, I said this when it was happening, and I don't love the idea of Tua getting thin and getting more mobile. I hated that from jump. I hated the false sense of security that it gave Tua last year, playing all those games, and then being like, my turn, my time. I get to play at a weight that I'm more comfortable at, that I like, that I enjoy. And I just don't understand the need for this man to get elusive and try and get out of the pocket and make things happen. Very little good has happened when that's happened. He's got, I guess, a shiftiness to him that he can have. But even he said last year that he's never going to be the guy that he was in Alabama. Everybody threw like that Arizona game when he was a rookie in your face of like, this is the guy that they need to get back to. And the guy they need to get back to is the guy who can play every single game. That's going to be the guy that gives them the best chance. So like when I saw him on the boat this year with a bit of a pot belly, I was like, great, perfect. We need dad bod Tua. That needs to be the guy that we focus on. That is a man who does not run and stays on the field. To me, genius. Enough of this nonsense. Tua eating salads, Tua sucking down the kale. You're not a sea turtle. I have no need for that. What I do need you to do is turtle up, get back in jiu-jitsu classes, throw a damn gi on, do gi, do no gi. I don't give a rat's ass. Learn your damn Sonic the Hedgehog rolls and stay on the field. That's what I want from him. You want to know why? Here's a thought, because that's what worked. And he wanted a healthy Tua Tagovailoa, and that's what went out there and got you a healthy Tua Tagovailoa. When you learned how to roll backwards correctly without knocking your noggin, that worked. Trying to throw your head into linebackers, that's a terrible idea. So I don't mean to mince it down to brass tacks and be that simple, but I really, I don't understand any need to do anything else. However, it was interesting to hear Mike McDaniel talk about Zach Wilson today. I'm going to tell you, because everybody was a little bit squirrely with this pick. He's basically been one of the biggest draft busts over the last 10 years. And And everybody's like, Zach Wilson, that much money. Didn't play last year. Just was on the Broncos, which he got rave reviews from the Broncos. But Mike McDaniel had some interesting things that he had to say about Zach Wilson today. And the first thing that really stood out was that this guy, people wondered, like, why Zach Wilson? Why so much money for Zach Wilson? Why Zach Wilson so fast? Does he just have an awesome agent? Well, according to Mike McDaniel, he was the direct target. This was the guy that they wanted.
To be quite frank, it's an inexact science, but we thought that he was the best option for us. So, and I know, I think he was very much, I guess you guys wouldn't know this. I guess you guys are flying blind, so let me help you out. He was a direct, calculated target. We thought that was a way that the Miami Dolphins could get better, and are excited to see how he seizes that opportunity.
I love the fact that Mike McDaniel broke that down like he was playing a game of Battleship, being like, yeah, I just sunk his destroyer, dude. That was my exact target. You guys never saw it coming. It's like, great. Now, why was he so interested in Zach Wilson? So this was kind of fascinating. He believes that he comes into this thing with a lot of knowledge on Zach Wilson because he was, of course, part of the 49ers the year that they drafted Trey Lance at the time. And you remember the funny thing was that there was a lot of buzz that they were going to take McCorkle, Mac Jones, that they were going to take him number 3 overall. And everybody's like, what are you, nuts? And that kind of felt like then they pivoted because they got chicken shit out of it. And they were like, Trey Lance. Even though Trey Lance I don't know why I went to Colin Cowherd there. But it was, it felt like they got scared off of taking like the safe system guy with Mac Jones, even though that's kind of San Francisco's deal. And they end up going Trey Lance, who ends up being another bust in that whole draft class. And Mike McDaniel's sitting here and he's like, well, I watched every one of this kid's snaps in college. So he felt like he came at this thing with a lot of institutional knowledge, even though we're at a time where that draft didn't go great for the San Francisco 49ers. He felt like this was a guy in Zach Wilson who didn't fall to them, but could have, that he had a lot of talent. The thing was that he didn't play NFL football, that he was basically playing willy-nilly at BYU and was going to need some time to develop. So he felt like this guy was going to come in the league and he was going to take it on the chin, but obviously him playing in New York was going to come with a lot of extra pressure. But he feels like this is going to be the place for him. And all that stuff was pretty interesting from Mike McDaniel. It kind of felt like he had almost goo-goo eyes for a new quarterback because, he's got to find somebody if the whole Tua thing doesn't work out.
We drafted a quarterback in San Francisco the year he came out. I watched every snap of his collegiate play, and he was a phenomenal talent that, in my opinion, didn't have reps at an NFL pocket yet. Like he had at BYU, he was launching it from about 10 and 11 yards deep, and you're not in the phone booth. And so in my estimation, there was going to be some nuanced growth to his game that I think it is close to impossible to excel at that early in that new form of football that he was playing.
Pretty interesting stuff. And it's like Mike McDaniel, we know, remember there was this whole debate last year, right? It was a chicken and egg thing. For years, everybody was like, no, Mike McDaniel fixed Tua. He boosted up his confidence, which Tua gave a lot of credit to. Then we're sitting here in a system where it's like, wow, that Skylar Thompson thing, way to go, Mike McDaniel. This was your handpicked guy that you drafted, and he was a friggin' disaster. That didn't work out too great for you. And then you're just sitting here scrambling because you got Snoop Huntley out there and Tim Boyle, and none of it is working out for him. And so I think there is a little bit of a, okay, can Mike McDaniel develop quarterbacks? Like, is that a thing? Because we have seen these former Jet quarterbacks, Darnold, Geno. Could Zach Wilson be the next guy? Now, obviously, this has to come with the caveat of we're not going to know unless Tua Tagovailoa gets hurt. But the odds are Tua Tagovailoa at one point is going to get hurt. That is just the odds of what has happened. I hope that doesn't happen. I wish it doesn't happen. Quite frankly, I wish Zach Wilson no success because that would mean that Tua got hurt. But if it is in the case where you do need to have Zach Wilson have success, yeah, Mike McDaniel's quarterback guru-ness is a little bit on the line here with Zach Wilson. And it's interesting that he goes to a guy that he did scout a lot, that he does know the talent that he possesses, and now has taken some licks in the league, has gotten his ass kicked, has gotten basically got run out of New York, never finished his rookie deal. And he does think that this can be a little bit of a Tua recreation, which almost makes you wonder, like, yes, he's looking for a safety net if Tua does get hurt, but also if, let's say, Tua does get hurt again, could he actually be the heir apparent to the Dolphins? Because Zach Wilson gave voice to this on his intro press conference where he's like, I still think I can be a starter in this league. I just need that opportunity. And I always find it fascinating with quarterbacks, like those quarterbacks who are looking for the opportunities, picking the places that they do. The Dolphins in some way are a match made in heaven for certain guys like that because, yes, you have a starting quarterback situation here that's a little volatile. Not because of Tua's ability, it's because of his availability. And that's where the Dolphins are at with the Zach Wilson move.
What I see in Zach is the experience of being the second pick in the draft, being the starter week one, and then not fulfilling the rookie contract. That is behind him. So to me, that's an exciting prospect. Because that's you can't put a measurement on that human ability that is huge at the quarterback position. Not comparing the players at all on the record. Not comparing the players. Tua found that this environment helped him through that process. As coaches, we want to offer literally everything to his game, and I'm excited about where he's at based upon him.
Too late, no backsies. You compared him. Like, I don't know what to do. You don't get to just do like Eric Spoelstra does with the referees where he's like, NBA, do not find me. You don't get to say, I'm not comparing them, but Tua loved it here. And then, like, no one gets to run with that. Like, and I don't think it's apples to apples because I do think that Tua, even before Mike McDaniel, was a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. Like, he was better in college. He was better with pedigree. He maybe wasn't drafted as high because he had the injury concerns and all that stuff. But even with Brian Flores being a meanie, Tua was a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. So maybe he's just a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. But you can tell Mike McDaniel's looking for, it almost feels like they're looking for that next gem out there that they can find because that room stunk to high heaven last year. And they need to find some solutions that can actually get this fixed in the case that what happens to Tua happens again, because let's just face it, it happens to Tua a lot. And the Dolphins just need to be in a much more prepared situation. Do I have the confidence in that? I got to be honest with you. Not really. Because what other proof is there that Mike McDaniel can do that other than Tua Tagovailoa? And I just don't know what Zach Wilson has warranted to give anybody that faith, other than at one point people thought of this guy as the top dude, one of the top dudes in a draft that has a pretty pedestrian top three to its name right now with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. And the only reason that Trevor Lawrence is even kind of holding that up right now is he's got a playoff win against Justin Herbert and he's got cool hair. But other than that, even his career has been pretty underwhelming thus far. By comparison to Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, he's mother bleeping Joe Montana. But in the parallels of the league, I don't even know how many people, I don't know where you would put Trevor Lawrence. So all this stuff is interesting for Mike McDaniel. It certainly is not it certainly was noticeable how much he was drooling over the idea and the talents of the Zach Wilson, almost to the point where he's like excited to, try take out a new car for a spin. He's like, yeah, let's see what this sees. He's got a cannon. But though I appreciate his confidence in his ability and his environment, I think that's a great thing from Mike. I don't know what that hope is, because I think we heard a lot about this stuff, even if it's not the same pedigree. I think we thought this stuff was, year 3 is Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson took steps back. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but he certainly seems pretty giddy about it.